Welcome to Week in Review, where we look at some of the headlines making news and catch up on some of the stories that have made the headlines in the last week. I'm joined today by some of our regulars and Randy Ellis from the Watchdog Desk. From sports, we've got Darnell Mayberry, and then from business, Don Mecoy. Headed into the long Labor Day weekend, guys. Rainy weather outside, but we got a lot of stuff going on. Randy, let's start with this tiff at the state. So apparently we've got a state auditor who isn't quite happy with what they have in mind for his office.
Well, he was told earlier this week that he was going to get evicted, and he didn't know anything about that going into it. It was the people that are planning the renovation of the Capitol building, and the Office of Management and Enterprise Services just came down and said, we've decided that we need your space, and you're going to be evicted. So he felt he should have been consulted at the very least, and doesn't like it. So he's told him that, and now the governor has stepped in, and she says that she wants him to work out something where he can stay. So we'll see how it all works out.
And there's a little speculation, right? I mean, about bad blood and whether that had anything to do with why he's being try to move him out of the Capitol.
There's a lot of speculation about bad blood. Gary Jones, the auditor, has made no bones about it. He said that he felt that the Preston Durflinger was upset that he's questioned their frugality on some of the raises they've given in the past, and thinks this may be retribution. So yeah, there's some bad blood out there.
And then also there was a question about, Preston Dorflinger works for the governor, right? And then the question arising of, well, why is the governor retroactively now coming out and saying, I don't think that's such a good idea? Wouldn't Preston Dorflinger have run that by the governor before he made that plan public?
Well, that's a good question. The governor says the first she knew about it was when she read about it in the newspaper.
Which I'm glad to know that she is a newspaper reader.
It's good that she's a newspaper
Always
reader.
Good to know.
Whether that's the case, when I talked to the people, the spokesman for Durflinger's office and the person involved in the project to renovate the Capitol, they said they didn't really, there's like 19 agencies or something in the Capitol, and they didn't do a lot of consulting with the individuals involved in that ahead of time, because if you can't, they said you can't really get agreement with that many people. They wanted a plan that they felt would prepare the Capitol for the next 50 to 100 years, that would make it more accessible to the public. They say a lot of these changes are designed to speed up the time that it takes to get into the Capitol. If you've ever been with school groups that have tried to go in on there on big days, they sometimes have to wait out in the rain, and it's kind of inconvenient, so they're going to have multiple check stations to go through the metal detectors, and they're going to enlarge the dining area downstairs. Supposedly, there's several things that'll make it nicer for the public that wants to visit the Capitol. And they just kind of indicated they thought that the auditor's office was just one of the casualties of that effort.
Bad blood and politics at the Capitol. Who would have thunk it? Darnell, so college football getting underway.
Yep.
I know where Randy will be at 8 o'clock tonight. Same place I'll be, watching our beloved Wildcats play. Apparently there's some other football going on this weekend again. What's up for OU and OSU?
Well, OU actually has a very interesting and intriguing game. Top 15 matchup against Houston down in Houston at NRG Stadium, where the Houston Texans play. So it's technically a neutral site game, but it's in Houston's backyard. It's going to be a really interesting matchup to see OU's offense, high-powered offense this season with Joe Mixon, Samaje Perine, Baker Mayfield, a Heisman Trophy candidate, and they've got a ton of weapons on the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, I think you're going to have some question marks going into the season. How can they replace some of the losses that they had on the defensive side of the ball this year? And if they can do that, they're going to be right back in the thick of it for the college football playoff. So it's going to be an exciting year for OU. For OSU, Southeast Louisiana doesn't really draw much interest, but I think there's a lot of intriguing questions for OSU going into this year. Mason Rudolph, James Washington, you got Barry J. Sanders coming in. What kind of running back will he be? A lot of, obviously, his father being a Hall of Fame running back. So it's going to be a lot of interesting storylines this season for both schools.
Mm-hmm. And with Houston, it's almost like some people are viewing it a little bit as an audition for their possibility of being a Big 12 member, right? That's one of the schools that's on our list.
A lot of people are. Houston seems to be the only group of people who aren't looking at it like that. You know, they don't seem to look at this game as some sort of audition. they had a great season last year, and they're putting together some really good seasons and turning the corner as a program. So it could be a really interesting opportunity for them and an intriguing option for the Big 12 as well. But there's a lot of things left to be determined in terms of Big 12 expansion.
So we have a big crew down in Houston covering the game for us. We have a big crew up in, is it in Stillwater?
It's in Stillwater.
In Stillwater. Chance for folks to meet our new OU beat writer, right?
Brooke Pryor, yep.
On the
It's gonna be our
job.
first game, so we're excited about that.
Okay. How about local colleges? Anybody that we should be looking for in terms of just on the local scene? I know UCO didn't have a great start to their season last night. Any of the small college teams that look to be anything to keep an eye on this year?
No, I think the real intrigue, the real entertainment is going to be with OU and OSU this year.
Great, great. Don, I know where you'll be tomorrow afternoon watching your beloved Sooners, I'm sure.
Tomorrow
right?
morning, yes.
Tomorrow morning, okay. Would you like better or not?
Yeah,
Morning
but
games?
I like morning games more than night games.
Okay. What's going on the business side, especially with folks this week who may have filled their gas tanks?
Yeah, it was kind of out of left field. Excuse me. Tulsa-based Magellan Midstream, which is a market middleman for a lot of our gasoline, particularly here in central Oklahoma. They discovered earlier this week that they had been improperly mixing gasoline. They did an inventory, found that a lot more ethanol was missing than should have been. They discovered they had a problem with one of their delivery services, and up to 400,000 gallons of gasoline may have gone out that was up to 30% ethanol. Now, the most common gas that we all buy is about 10% ethanol, and cars are designed to, be able to run on that. But when you get beyond 10%, cars are not designed to run on that. So there was big concerns about what the liability was and what the problems might be. And in fact, I give it up to Magellan. They informed everyone as quickly as they could. The companies, there were more than 100 gas stations and other gasoline distributors that they sent this gasoline to. They let them know. They let the public know. They said if there's any problems, we're going to take care of them. Set up an 800 number, and they've really been good about taking care of it. Now, it turns out as we're now about 3 days into this thing, there haven't been any huge problems that have showed up. They've gone to a lot of places where they had taken the gasoline. They've done testing. Norman Schools, for instance, was one of the places. Their fleet of cars, not their buses, used this gasoline. And when they tested the gas that was in there, it had been diluted enough that it was okay. It actually met the qualifications. They went ahead and emptied the gas tank, cleaned it out, and filled it back up, and they've been doing that all over all these places where they had done that. We haven't heard a lot of problems from motorists who have had problems with their car. We've been trying, Adam Wilmoth, our energy editor, has been trying to get the word out to people. One of the things you might want to do if you've been at one of these stations that we've listed that may have had some of this bad gasoline, you might want to go in and top off your tank with 100% gasoline, dilute it even more. But through the process, 30% was the worst case scenario. It probably wasn't that bad. When they put it in the tanks at the stations, it got diluted again with the gas that was already in there. Then when you put the gas in your tank, which is not completely empty generally, you've diluted it again, and so you're getting closer and closer. Even if there was a problem, it seems like it hasn't been a dire situation where we've had a lot of people's cars having problems.
Is there anything that you would be looking for as a car owner to indicate that you have a problem? Or
we talked to some mechanics, and they talked about you'll hear pinging in your engine. You'll see problems with power. It may be lagging and things like that. They said if you really have a problem, generally it's going to be noticeable to you. You're going to realize you've got a problem. One tank full probably is not going to permanently damage your car. If you did it over and over again with too much ethanol, you would have some problems with some of the internal components. But they said generally for most people it's probably not going to be a problem.
And we published a list of affected stations.
More than 100, yeah, and we've published it a couple of times, and we also have it on News OK, and people can go back there. They've updated it once or twice, and so we keep that current. So if you want to know, go to News OK and see where that was. And we have dates, too, of when they got their deliveries.
Great. How about this weekend? What do you got coming up in business?
Our Brianna Bailey's got an interesting story about abandoned buildings in Oklahoma City. It's a real problem for the city because it's very expensive for them to go in and go through all the legal issues that they have to deal with if they want to demolish a building. So it's just too expensive. So she's found some buildings, some formerly prominent buildings that have become neglected and abandoned. They're full of graffiti, they're falling apart, there's weeds growing all over the place. and just some of the issues that the city has to deal with, and some of the potential solutions that they're looking at to try and take care of that problem.
Great stuff. Darnell, anything in sports special this weekend that we can look forward to?
OU football coverage, OSU football coverage. It's football season.
Wall to wall, wall to wall. Listen, guys, thanks for joining me. That's all that you have time for this morning. This is the kind of stuff that you can get at newsok.com, that you can get in your newspaper every day. Pick up a paper, check us out. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Happy Labor Day weekend, and we'll see you again next week.